to the No BS Short-Term Rental Podcast, an unfiltered look into the global vacation and short-term rental industry.
I'm Mateo Bradford.
And I'm John Stokinger.
And this is our podcast. We bring the right people to the table at the right time, giving you an inside view and take on the short-term rental industry like no other podcast can.
Good morning, Mateo. How are you, man?
Fantastic, brother. How are you?
I am good. It was a hell of a storm last night, like 80-mile-per-hour winds, like thunder and lightning. It was, I'll be honest, it was a little freaky. It was here in Fort Wayne in the Midwest.
I thought you were talking about the Warriors-Celtics game last night.
Well, yeah, well, they, that too.
I thought you were talking about a real storm.
A real storm, not sports. Our guest on the show is also from the Midwest, so I'm curious to get her take on the storm, the actual storm, if it crushed, came through Chicago like it did here last night. But man, season 2, episode 28. We'll get into our guest in just 1 second. I want a quick call outs. First of all, if you're liking the podcast, please go ahead, go to Apple Podcasts, go to Spotify, leave a review. We appreciate the 5-star reviews. If you have 2 more seconds, please type up a small paragraph and tell us why you like the podcast. That would be fantastic. I want to also give an audible shout out to Vintory, we are on our second round of 10 episodes with them. They are moving on. For now, they'll be back hopefully in the future for more sponsorship with us, but they've been a great sponsor of the podcast. If you want to go ahead and learn more about Vintory, please do not hesitate to go to Vintory/no BS. We have a great they have a great deal to go ahead, exclusive no BS deal through Vintory to learn more about homeowner acquisition. Huge shout out to Brooke and Vintory. Thank you so much for sponsoring 20 episodes with us.
Yeah, thank you. Very grateful to Brooke and that team. Also, if you're watching us on YouTube, please like and subscribe, as John noted before, and leave us a review. We can't do this without you guys. We appreciate the support.
We have some pretty amazing new sponsors. If you're watching on YouTube, this one on my chest is coming out. It should be very, very soon. Kasaga's coming in. So shout out to Steve and the whole Brian. Yeah, the whole team there. Thank you so much. We're excited to be working with you. We got some new exciting things in the works as well. But without further ado, let's go ahead and introduce today's guest, the one, the only, the CEO of Beyond, Julie Brinkman. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me, John. I'm glad I could make it through the storm. And Mateo, so great to meet you. Super excited to be here.
How was the storm? Was it insane in Chicago too?
It was wild. So, it's funny because they test the tornado alarms the first Tuesday of every month. So last week I joked that we never get any. And the tornado alarm started going off. My son was freaking out. My dog was drooling. The baby, it was insane in our house. So it was a bit of chaos. And luckily, the tree that fell down right behind my car, not on my car.
Oh, wow. The interesting thing, all around the city, here in Fort Wayne, it was there's insane videos of shopping carts flying across parking lots and all these things that are the trees falling down and power lines down. Normally a small storm come through, we'll lose power, but we didn't lose power at all. It just kind of went down and then came back. It was kind of weird. It was a lot of verbose, we're a storm, we're here, and then nothing really happened. We're knock on wood. It was pretty it was a pretty good, it's more scary visually. I don't think anyone got hurt, so but yeah, it was really great.
Thing that happens, I get it. In Atlanta, we get it all the time because we get that hot air, cool air all the time. So our thunderstorms are they're legendary. But how often does that happen? I don't think of that type of weather in Chicago, in that area. That's crazy. I mean,
tornadoes are a Midwest thing, but we went from 7 to instantly we were at 100 degrees. Yeah. It was pretty and really, really humid. So that isn't normally, especially in June. Yeah, that might be an August, September. We're gonna get some really hot weather, but in June it was a little out of left field.
That's year round down here.
Yeah.
So you're like used to it.
Yeah, it is. It's crazy. Atlanta's weather. It's literally snowed and been like 70 in the same day. Like, okay.
Yeah. Well,
but it makes for some pretty interesting weather. Our thunderstorm. You talk about like thunderstorms that are just they're just war. It's crazy.
Yeah.
I want to chat and we want to get into your story, Julie, for sure. We want to hear, get into, your role at Beyond and where you're going, all this stuff. I want to chat a little bit about what's in the news before we dive into that. I'd love to kind of what's in the news right now and on LinkedIn. If you're following LinkedIn, there's some heated verbal battles back and forth, and which we won't get into right now, but about money and SPAC and like an investment and what is the two Vacasa, we're talking Sonder that are not showing the numbers that their investors and the public are wanting to go ahead and see. Like what is your take on these companies that came in and went public and like how are they going to dig themselves out and are people overreacting or is this a real thing? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think, there's a couple interesting things going on. First and foremost, I think, the tumult you're seeing with Vacasa in particular and their results is really shows you how hard it is to be a property manager. I mean, you're talking almost endless access to capital and tens of thousands of properties, and they're still having a tough time making a go of it. And so when you think about the thousands of property managers that aren't public companies, that aren't in the spotlight, don't have that access to capital and advisors and, PR and all that stuff, what they must be going through and how difficult scaling a truly local operation is. So that's, I think, the first thing. And then second thing, with Sonder picking up master leases, I think we all learned in the pandemic.
Yeah.
It's not, I wouldn't put that as a top 10 investment ideas, if I'm trying to grow my portfolio. And, they luckily made it through the pandemic and I think are going through some pretty necessary right sizing in terms of their cost structure. Now, I think at the end of the day, what you'll see with money being much more expensive to access today than it was, a few months ago, the ability to SPAC, the ability to get these crazy valuations has just come off the table. And so what you're seeing is investors really swing the pendulum in terms of what they're rewarding. Yes, growth, but profitability and stability, cash flow, not just growth at all costs. And it was a pretty remarkable shift overnight. If you think in the 6 months ago, what we were seeing with valuations to now, that it can be very hard as an operator to completely pivot your organization, especially for entities the size of Sonder and Vacasa.
Well, and what my thing is this too, like, what are the runways also? And no one's talking about the real life effects of everything else that's going on right now. Supply chain issues, inflation within the economy, war, right? Like there are a lot of things that touch our industry in a lot of ways that directly affect operators and directly affect our business lines. And, we talk about these valuations all the time. And we talk about people not having a path to profitability, but what is the timeline they're given to get there? Like, I think that's the interesting question, right? Because everyone knows Vacasa bought up, right? Sonder's getting all this money. So what are their timelines? Like we can sit up here and speculate on how they're doing, but at what stage are they? And are you taking into consideration the reality of the market that they're dealing in right now? And I think those are all questions that will come in time, but like I think everyone wants to speculate without really putting the metrics of saying, well, are they measuring them against where they should be right now?
Yeah, exactly. Runway is, if you're talking runway, we're already having a conversation that no one in my position really wants to have, right? Because now you're looking at how long do I have to keep the lights on? Right. You got to make some really tough decisions as you think about making cuts. Do you cut into growth, your growth opportunities? Those are really tough decisions. I think the other dynamic that you're also seeing in the macroeconomic environment is labor.
Yeah.
We still have a massive labor shortage. It's really hard. We haven't quite returned to all of the systems that parents and people need to go to work on a daily basis. And so operators like Vacasa, like property managers across the world are still having trouble, running their operation.
I mean, we look at Sonder, they made the decision. I think it's 21% of their team they let go. Is that correct? Am I saying the right numbers?
I think it was 21 of what they called their corporate staff.
Yeah, so their executive team.
Yeah.
Okay. But still, I mean, it's okay, we're freeing up a little bit of money, and we'll see. Obviously we wish everyone the best. We had friends in the space who at the beginning of everything with the master lease model was completely folded, and then we have other friends that came in and acquired that inventory and acquired those buildings that and happened to do well. I was actually very surprised when Sonder decided to go public. I was very surprised that they weathered it the way they did. And obviously, now looking at the Sonder model, and they're not out of the weeds yet, and I wish them the best of luck. And hopefully that they do have a path to profitability now.
Yeah, I mean, that's likely what they're laying out with their investors, behind closed doors. I mean, the other really silver lining here is there are companies both on the supply side and the vendor side that are growing like crazy. And so hopefully as those folks, are having tough decisions at Sonder or Vacasa, they're finding those opportunities that really do have that, profitable path in front of them.
The interesting
scaling is incredibly challenging. Like it just you think of what they're doing and the scale of what they're doing, it's incredibly challenging, and there's no blueprint for it, right? Like our industry hasn't seen anything like the companies that are coming up. Like, and you look at the success of like what Steve is doing with V-Trips and everything he has going on, and then all of the other, like Cassiola, that is a crazy amazing brand that does great numbers and is profitable and is doing and actually trying to spread the wealth within the industry and showing people like the right way to do these things. I think when we're talking about these numbers, I think it's critical to focus moving forward on the profitability portion of it, because at the end of the day, that's what matters, right? That's what keeps the lights on when the storm hits, right? That's what makes sure that you're in a position to take care of your employees, right? Like, and if that structure of your business is not there and you're not on a path to actually make money, you can't do the things that a successful business will need done at a certain point. So
yeah,
I think that it'll be interesting to see where these conversations go. It got heated this weekend, but I think it's a needed discussion, because as an industry, I think there's validity to all of the conversations, but I do think we need to tone down the rhetoric a little bit and understand, hey man, these are our friends, our family. These are also people who are working in these jobs, and our opinions are our opinions, but also these are people's lives that are being affected by what we're talking about, and so I think we just need to be a little more heads up around that.
Let's not pretend, this is the way things always have been and always will be, right? There was a point in time where growth at all costs was getting rewarded like crazy, and that was like, I don't know, 12 months ago. So
right, for sure.
If you sold then big up on you. But and so I think what I've definitely learned in the only 35 years I've been on this planet, as I tell my children, I'm kidding, is it's all gray. And so thinking that things are always black and white, you're going to find yourself on the wrong side of that equation at some point, and need to put your hat in your hand.
So interesting that's the default, right? For most of our, like as human beings in nature, is to go to this or the other, instead of really looking at where those kind of Venn diagrams go together, where a lot of the truth lies, but we'll leave that there. So now that we've had that conversation, again, we were excited to have you on the show. One of the things we love to do on the show is hear about people's journeys and how they got here. So, give us the breakdown. Where did it start? And let us know, take us all the way to where you are right now. And we also love to hear, your vision for the future.
Yeah, I want to know, Julie, how a financial advisor goes to being a regional vice president at Groupon and I want to know about hierology. I'm not familiar with that. And then to be in the, obviously these are, I'm assuming upward trajectories for you, along your career path, but you definitely Groupon to Beyond are two, obviously it takes similar mindset and skill set to go ahead and do these things, but they're apples and oranges here.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, these are people. We are all people. These are businesses. And so, if I, Mateo, like to your question, where it all started, I grew up in a house where my mom became a single mom sort of overnight, and she had no college degree, and she worked for my dad. And so when my dad left, he was like, "Oh, and by the way, your job's gone." And I was in fourth grade at the time, so that puts me at about 9, 10 years old. That's where I think it really all started. Watching her go back to college, go back to law school, bust her butt, graduate number 1 in law school. I realized 2 things. 1 is you have to work really hard. 2 is I'm never going to be in that position. And so I was already pretty a hardworking student. That's really informed how hard I worked in high school and college. And then after college, I was like sick of writing checks to like Jimmy John's for sandwiches. I was so poor. It was, I was like, can you wait to cash that $3.50, Mr. And I got a job at Deloitte, and here I was, making like right out of school. I thought I was going to make all this money. I'd been bartending, and then I realized, oh my gosh, you actually have to pay taxes. And I made, at the end of the day, you take home not too much cash, but you work really hard. So I spent 10 years. The first stint was actually in forensic accounting. So I was like solving financial crimes, which sounds super exciting.
It does not.
It was boring.
Like, forensic, anything you got to add forensic in front of, like, that's not like, crime
like a murder,
like murder stuff.
Oh yeah.
Forensic account. Oh yeah. Okay.
This was no murders. It was this Cleveland Water Department that was my biggest, I probably am not allowed to even say that. It was my biggest investigation. Anyhow, it wasn't my jam, but was my jam was moving over to the financial advisory practice, which helped companies understand the value of their businesses, whether they wanted to sell them or buy some, or finance them. And I learned a ton in terms of client management, of working hard. I mean, you're talking 80, 90, 100 hours week over week for about 10 years, and thought that's what I was going to do. Like, I was going to be a partner. I was going to wear my pantsuit, and we were going to live life gloriously until mandatory retirement at 62.
Hey, Julie, I'm a little disappointed when I bumped it when we chatted down in Palm Beach that you didn't wear the pantsuit.
It was in the closet.
Next time, please.
I'll bust it out for you, John.
Thank you.
Yeah, and then it was like, and then a bunch of life happened in a really short period of time, and I realized like there was this almost mortgaging of my personality and who I was to try to fit this mold. That's not talking trash on Deloitte. Deloitte is an amazing place to work. You learn a ton, but I realized I needed to go somewhere where I could be more of my full self. And so why not go to this up and coming, cocky, just public coupon marketplace right down the street where I could wear pink pants and, and have some fun. And that was a complete right turn in terms of my career. I learned a lot about managing people versus managing projects, and had a ton of fun. There was a lot I learned, both what to do and what not to do. And so, there were some things I didn't agree with conceptually that the executive team operated on. And so I wanted to find something smaller, which is when I went to hierology. We were about $1 million in revenue when I got there. I was running the customer. When you run a startup, the first order of business is get customers. And then you're like, we'll just handle managing them later. Well, we were at we need to handle managing them point. And that was my job, was come in and figure out how we're not going to lose every customer that we just acquired.
Right.
And, the business grew. We did great things. It was again a vertical software solution. So we were selling to auto dealers. And you think Verma's crazy. the Verma of auto dealers is next
I can
level.
Yeah. And you're building the plane while it's in the air. That's incredible. With this dynamic group of customers, I can only imagine how fun that was.
One of our customers legitimately had a tiger. It's just wild. And then
wait, time out.
Yeah,
Okay, so one had a
there.
tiger.
Yeah.
You know your boy, and shout out to Joe Joyce. He in one of the shows he went to before you came on board, like he had an alligator at the show.
Not.
You know this, right?
This is new information for me.
Okay, so make sure you ask Joe Joyce about the alligator. Could
we just leave the wildlife alone?
Like, no, it might have been like a Florida extravaganza, like the Florida Vermin.
Unless you're doing like a conservation thing.
Yeah.
Like,
I think it was a baby, but I just
you're making it worse, man. Like just
baby.
And he was albino, endangered. There's only one of 3 in the world, right?
And like he tattooed it, right?
Yeah, it only had a little bit of blood on the. All right, back to your
so hierology.
Yeah, so we 5 years, roughly 5 years there, grew it a bunch, had built teams, won a lot of accolades from a best places to work. I learned a ton about setting the right culture and building the right team there. And so when I was going back to market, I had a couple really strict criteria. One was I wanted to find a company that had product market fit. 2 is I'm not at my core like an entrepreneur. I'm not a founder, but I know how to work with founders and I know how to bring like order to chaos. Yeah. I needed to know that relationship was going to be strong. Yeah. And then 3rd was I wanted a really strong capital position and clear-minded investors. All things that aren't exactly observable on a piece of paper. And so the screening process was as much on my end as it was on their end, but ultimately fell in love with Beyond, fell in love with the product, fell in love with the people. We got to San Francisco, and this is right before the pandemic, and everyone was so eager and caring about the product and the customer and what we were offering. It was like tangible. I could feel it. And so I came on, and my first day, I got an apartment in San Francisco. I have 3 kids. I had 2 at the time. I was like, hey, mom's going to be gone for like 3 nights a week. And they were like, what? And I'm like, we'll talk later. Don't worry about it. And my plan was to commute to San Francisco from Chicago. Yeah. That was March 2nd of 2020.
Interesting time.
9 days later, the NBA canceled their season. And I was like, maybe I should go home. I think I gotta go home. So, and then the ride really began.
Right, I bet.
Before you get there, let me ask you this question. At what point in your career, like, I know you told me like the point, but talk to me about the decision of when you convinced yourself you wanted to be a CEO. Like, when did you know that you wanted to take it there? Because it sounds like you had so much operational experience and you could do so much in terms of building culture and other things. When did you know that you just wanted to be a CEO? And tell me about that decision.
Yeah. Okay. So there was the first part of my career at Hierology. It was clear at Groupon. I was like, I'm not going to work at a company where I think there's bad decisions being made at the top. So I need to be at the top. That was certainly that decision. So Hierology, here I was at the leadership table. And when I grew to the chief operating officer, I was internally like, I'm great being number 2. I'm great being behind the curtain, feeding the talking points, the strategy to the CEO, whether it's a board meeting or in a public presentation, and we can execute everything that I'm designing. And then at some point, I was like, wait a second. It was about maybe 3.5 years into my tenure, like, why am I happy to sit in the shadows? Right. I should be out there. Those are my ideas. That's my job. I'm making this happen. And that was sort of the beginning of like, okay, well, there was already a CEO there and he wasn't going anywhere. He was the founder. And so that was the beginning of sort of how we ended up, giving each other a hug and saying we had a great run, and let me go find something where I can be that person in front. Yeah.
I love the confidence that doesn't come across like, obviously there's ego involved here because, ego is a positive thing. But it's not like a cocky ego. Like there's confidence that, and you've obviously proven yourself, through your whole trajectory in your career. And you're like, you know what, screw this. Like, I appreciate, where we've gone but I know I'm a big part of getting these companies to where they've gone. It's time to step in the limelight. I love that.
Well, yeah. And I think, John, there's also something too, it's time to put your name on the line too, because there's also like, if you're going to sign up for that growth and those targets, who's like, when you don't hit them, like,
right,
that's on you. Right. Exactly. Yeah. And so there was like, okay, I'm ready to take that.
It's awesome.
Yeah. It's a lesson in courage, because it takes courage. And that's why I wanted to ask that question, because I think a lot of people think they have good ideas, and a lot of people, think they can solve problems. And a lot of people, it's easy to sit back and criticize and say, this sucks. But how many people step up and actually can, and again, confidence, arrogance, whatever you want to call it, if you know that you can do something better, and shame on you for not going ahead and actioning that. Like, I think, how many people do you know that actually, that have great ideas and are never going to push them forward, or are scared of leadership, or, for whatever reasons, don't follow through? Think about how much you're talking about culture. How much better is your culture when you build a culture of leaders, right? And you build that culture of leaders through leadership and showing them, hey, these are aggressive goals. I'm willing to put my name out here. I'm willing to take this to success and take you with me. That's showing leadership, right? And I think that inspires others. And hopefully, I think that's great. I hope that inspires others to do the same thing, because that's how change happens.
I hope so. Yeah. I mean, I think at some point you realize in your career, you look around the table and you realize no one has the right answer here. We're only going to get to the right answer by me speaking up and you speaking up and us having an open, respectful, conversation about where we need to go. And I really try to encourage everyone at Beyond to speak openly, speak transparently. Every week we have a blind Q&A with our company. Whatever you want to know, we'll talk about it. Because I didn't get to my seat by hiding and by not having the opportunity to honestly be in a job I wasn't quite qualified for.
Let's talk then. Okay, you talked about your leadership. Let's talk about now. You're here at Beyond. You came into 9 days, then the NBA shuts down their season. You're like, oh shit, what's going on? You're a Chicago gal, or you're Detroit, but now Midwest gal. You're out west. You left your family back home. Like let's talk about this ride. I mean, at this time, this is when Beyond was still Beyond Pricing at the time, and had just gone ahead and gotten that big, like what was the timeline between when they got the big investment, and please recap what that was again for us, and to where were you there already, or were you came in right after that investment?
Yeah. So
were you purchased by the investment?
There was a for sale sign on me. Yeah, no. The investment. So what John's referring to is we raised a pretty large round with Bessemer Venture Partners in October of 2019. And David Kelso and Ian McHenry were the two co-founders running the show at the time. So Ian was CEO, David was CTO. Round closed, and Ian departed after that. And that's when the search started for my role. So that was the serendipity that led me to joining Beyond.
So David was just more of an interim CEO role. If I'm speaking out of turn, please let me know. So because it was Ian and then David, and then Ian stepped out, David stepped into CEO during a search for another CEO. Is that correct?
So it wasn't predetermined that this was going to be an interim position, but David did step in because there was a lot of uncertainty running the show, wanted to bring on somebody who could run the strategy and go to market. That's where I came in. And, it let's figure out if you staying CEO makes sense or me becoming CEO. So it was a really, that was a conversation we had a lot up front. And then all of a sudden, the world was falling apart. And so it was like, well, let's just, let's batten down the hatches and make sure everyone needs what they, has what they need. And then ultimately, I think it was like early last year, I took that CEO role.
Now, is David still in a leadership position with Beyond?
Oh yeah. So
Okay.
he's CTO, founder. He and I, we have a really close relationship. So he runs all of our product design and engineering. I run all of the go-to-market side, and we work really closely together.
Awesome.
Yeah, he's a really fun, I don't know. He's so unique. I love working with him. And
right.
Remember, that was one of my criteria. Yeah.
Right. And the interesting thing, like I interviewed back when I was with Track. I had like prior to this, I had like this little like side gig like thing I was doing with Track, and I actually, Tracking with John. Yeah, I did this thing called Tracking. I actually interviewed David for that. So I think we had like a 20-minute segment. It was pretty cool.
Oh, I love that. I'll have to find that. If you have it, share it with me.
Oh, it's somewhere. We'll find it. Well, that's awesome. So let's talk though. So you're here, the Beyond, let's talk Beyond and early Beyond pricing. And the interesting thing with, we've interviewed, we've had, Anurag on with Price Labs. We've had David on with Wheelhouse, Andrew on with Wheelhouse. We've had, so there's some different stories about, from different perspectives of how the whole Beyond thing came into fruition and where it's going. And I don't really care about that. But what I do care about is everyone knows Beyond pricing at the time, Beyond pricing came in, and they were even though Price Labs was there about the same time, you all were the show in town. Like you were the big splash. Everyone that was getting into the hashtag dynamic pricing thing, like you were the game in town, and all the big players, you had the majority of the market share, and you may still today. You probably do. What happens when a company has the majority of the market share, right? And they've gotten all this market share. Like, where do you go and you scale from there? Like, how do you? In North America, say you have, I don't know what that is. Say you have 60%, 70% of their, of the you have all the big players at that time. How do you scale and grow? And we know you scale and grow by going to Europe. And I know you're going global, and that's a big push. I think you have a Barcelona office, correct? Right?
We do, right. Yeah.
I did some research.
Oh yeah.
But where do you scale from there? Like I'm assuming some of this investment that came in was to help maybe build some new things or give some new options to your already existing clientele. Like where do you go from there?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And I think, just stepping back, if you look at the world, and there's different sources you can get in terms of market sizing, but somewhere between like Focusrite and Skift, and you're probably looking at $150 billion total GBV in short-term rentals. Mm-hmm. And that is growing double digits year over year, not only taking hotel market share, but also just organically growing, demographically. I mean, I think in an odd way, like my parents, for example, got their first Airbnb in the last 2 years. So you have a growing double-digit marketplace. Yeah. And so $150 billion, which means there is a ton of opportunity globally. Europe, as you mentioned, is larger than the US. It's about a third larger in terms of listing, albeit much more fragmented and much more nuanced in terms of how you grow. But when you look at North America, and granted, I was not, I'm a newbie in this industry. I'm two years and change. So in dog years, I'm like a teenager. So that all the history of how the other pricing providers came to be is sort of learned history for me. But first and foremost, North America, you're talking probably about a $50 billion GBV market in total. Now, I don't think any one of us has dominant market share with that market. Yes, there's a lot of, when you think about the traditional play, the traditional property managers in the traditional markets, large players that everyone knows about, awareness is super high, but you have a large growing population of these hosts becoming professionals, becoming, mid-market players. And so when we think about our growth in North America, I see nothing but opportunity. It's a different play than, 3 years ago.
Right, because those large property management companies that have 4,000 units, that have even 800 units, they've already, that those are kind of out of the way. One, either they're already yours, or you're trying to convince them to come back, but it's not necessarily a focus.
Well, I think, it is to the degree that there are folks out there that are still doing this manually,
True.
and with
True.
our teams of people. And if we're learning anything right now, it's you need people and systems. And so, yes, there's folks that were not first movers that we're still trying to work with. There's a new crop of property managers growing up, adopting, technology that, you see with like Guesty and HostAway going after, for example. So I think, but it's a different play, right? So now you're talking a true sales motion, true marketing. You have to have real discipline when it comes to going after that market. So that's how I see our growth really being fueled out of North America, but we are nowhere near as penetrated as you're saying, or that would limit growth there.
Awesome.
The other fact of the matter is like pricing is one thing, like how do you even know what's going on in your portfolio? We have 3 other products, our insights platform, which is our data and insights tool. First, even know what's going on with your portfolio against last year, this year, your market. Pricing is how you get better at that. Then you also make sure you're capturing the right demand with your booking engine. Your listings are getting to the right places with your channel manager. So there's more to the revenue management story than just pricing. And that's also what we see as an opportunity for a growth vector.
So what are those? And then I know Mateo's chomping at the bit here. He wants to get in. What are those other products? Just so we are aware. If I'm correct, did you acquire or beyond acquire Blizzard? Was that correct?
Yeah.
And this rebranded as something else and different. It's not just rebranded; it's retooled, from my understanding.
Shout out Beyond Edge team.
But yeah, so what are you, other than beyond pricing, the pricing tools, what are the other things that you're offering?
Sure. So we have Insights, which is our data and analytics platform. And today that is completely free. So you can connect your Airbnb, your Vrbo, any of the PMSs with whom we integrate. You can connect your account, visualize your portfolio, see it against the market, see it against your past. That's the first sort of, if you think about the Maslow hierarchy of value to property managers, that's your base layer. Second is pricing. Everyone knows this is pricing. I think that drum has been beaten. Third is our direct booking engine. And so that came from, we acquired the software assets of Blizzard. So we didn't pick up the marketing services. We have the website and booking engine business. We did bring over a few folks from Blizzard and have been working to retool the back end to make sure that, all one instance, we could easily deploy changes, things like that. Because direct booking isn't going anywhere. And with the way that OTAs are, I'm sure you saw the Airbnb changes over the past few weeks. Like
I may or may not work for one of them.
Excuse me, I jotted. Well, here I just, I'm chatting as if we're friends, but
that's fair. There's always shameless promotion.
Yeah, there we go.
We love Hopper and Eddie's. Right.
That's your day job. That's your day job.
Bills get paid.
And then we also have a channel manager that works with certain PMSs because certain PMSs make it really hard to get to certain channels. So we want to make our customers' lives easier. And that's Relay, which is our 4th product.
Okay. With offline, I'd like to chat with you.
Great.
All right, perfect. So Teo, you were going to say something.
My question is, looking forward, and you're seeing, as this industry is growing, especially with more focus from like Future Stay and all these other companies that are focusing on hosts, right? And they're focusing on, or just smaller size managers, giving them better tools, right? How do you, where is your focus? Like, how do you distribute your resources? Like, how do you know where beyond's, like, where do you want to be within that space, right? Because as we're seeing these segmented spaces, we're not just seeing one type of manager anymore, right? There is a market for, you know, whatever you want to call it, a host or a, you know, a amateur manager or whatever you want to name them. They're buying product, right? Like they're again, we're there's so much work to push them out of a side hustle into professionalization and using tools. How do you decide, and like, how is Beyond focusing on, you know, whatever segments they're focusing on? Like what, how do you decide where those resources go and what products to develop and for who, I guess is my question.
Yeah, I mean, that's the secret sauce, you know, how and what you work on and when. Today, you know, a lot of our investment has been in our multi-product platform, in standing up Europe. Europe is not easy, I'll tell you that much. But we have an amazing team there. So I could go on forever about that. They're really focused on the professional side of the house, but professionals are a bit smaller there. You know, now you're talking probably 10, 20 listings. The whole world of hosts and, you know, short-term rental investors, I think, has limitless potential. Now,
100%.
And they are sophisticated. They are influential. They realize that, and they're also single, double proprietors, maybe. So they ain't got time for anything. So they need tools. Hungry, yeah. And so
they need BI tools.
They need BI tools. They need pricing, like, and they get it, and they get that you know, you make 20% more in this day, and that fuels an entire season. So the whole notion that you'd manually price is not even in their brain. They're like, take charts, forget it. So I think that, and you know, it's a groundswell, quite frankly. Like, you don't do that because you just want 1 or 2 listings. You do that because you want to grow your business. You want to retire from your day job and run this.
You know, the super interesting thing I've seen in the past, and I can name drop in there, but I'm not going to. There's some players in the space that have come in that had, you know, 10 units, 15 units, and then in literally less than a year, they have over 100 units. And this wouldn't have been without acquisition, like through an M&A kind of process in the past, this wouldn't have been possible. But with these tools and that this tech tools that these property managers have at their fingertips and have at their disposal, that are relatively affordable, it's amazing. I love seeing these success stories of these cats coming into the space that are just crushing. And they're not just doing it like from like, oh, I got 100 units. They're like running really smooth business and great customer service, and the user experience from their side of the house to the guest side of the house is exceptional. And it's this professionally, I don't want to say professionally managed, but like this mindset of coming in, like, this is how it's going to be done, and this is how it needs to be done, is enabled them to scale exponentially faster than even say 5 years ago, where the tech was just kind of coming in. It's insane to see. I love it.
Yeah, I mean, name another industry where you can, you know, start with one and then 100x your business through the adoption of technology and good customer service without a huge capital investment. It's pretty wild.
Yeah, it's super fun.
I love it.
I love it. So, I mean, I loved how you said, I love it. You've been in this space now for 2.5 years. You're like a newbie, and like all the three of us have all kind of stumbled into, and a lot of people stumble into this industry and then just will never leave because they love it so much. But like, what is your overall experience like, and I know we were talking earlier about the auto industry trade show to like a vacation rental is, or short-term rental trade show, but what is your overall impression of this space, and of let's talk the people, but also like we already talked, we know where it's going, like it's scaling, and we know the trajectory. That's not really what I'm asking, is like the mindset, like where do you see in like the leadership, like do you see that we can do better? Do you see, like, are you encouraged with where we are and where we're going? I'm curious about your thoughts on this.
Yeah, I mean, it's been definitely 2.5 years of learning constantly, and people like Joe and some other folks at Beyond. And meeting folks like you at trade shows. It's just, I feel like a sponge. So first and foremost, the genuine authenticity and friendliness and openness, it just speaks to my Midwestern soul, and I really appreciate that. Two is, I think there is, like, while there is, as you mentioned at the top of the show, some pretty like intense rhetoric, but that's passion at the root of it. And so there's passion here, passion about growth, passion about who we are. But I think there's something we could really do better is remember who's at the center of this. And that is the property manager, is the host, are the people that are wearing 12 different hats in 1 hour, doing a million different things. And I really want to see us, when we're at these trade shows, and give the opportunity for property managers, for hosts to really share best practices, to learn from each other. Because they're so, as we mentioned, scaling this business is really difficult. And how are you paying your cleaners? I can learn something from that. We have a client who looks at Airbnb reviews and calibrates hourly rate to that. That's cool. We should talk about that, because that could make your business more profitable. And so, when we think about the who we're talking to, remembering that these are the folks that are fueling our industry, and keeping them at the center of conversation, at the center of development, and at the center of care, is something I'm really like, I feel passionately about.
Love that. Absolutely love that. I don't know. I'm almost like speechless. And I'm never really speechless.
I don't know if I bored you to death.
No. In a way, like
John doesn't have anything to say.
No, it was more of
first
a like
guest to do that, Julie. Absolutely. That's we're gonna have to do something.
Mic drop. Yeah. No, the interesting thing about it, I love the passion behind what you're saying, because it's so true, and it's stuff that that Mateo and I talk about a lot, and again, it's the whole reason why this podcast is a thing. It's not, we're not talking tips and tricks, we're talking culture, we're talking people, we're talking the fabric of our industry, and why it's truly is the reason we even have an industry. Yes, obviously there's money to be made here, and that's why everyone gets into something. At the end of the day, you want to, you got to provide for your family, but it's the passion, and it's this fabric that is super important to us. And that came out in what you're saying, not only from talking about the people, and also I could see how in your position, or working for you or under you or with you, would be awesome. I guess that's kind of where I was speechless, but then I became very verbose, so I apologize.
No, first of all, there's no apologies. I think, yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, we're really lucky. Yes, there's money to be made, but I think these are also community builders. These are folks that are giving back. Who's supporting local businesses? These are local businesses. And so that's, I love hearing conversations about those types of things, because I think you get a lot of the hotel lobby owning the PR about X, Y, and Z, and that's not really what's going on the ground. So I could go on for hours. Give me a glass of wine, and it's like, I mean, it's what, 10 a.m. No,
5 o'clock somewhere.
Full disclosure, we did not give Julie any wine. If you're listening to this, if she's drinking, it's on her own.
John, you're giving up the secret to the podcast. Ship them out, wine, and then we get them, sauced up and have a great conversation.
What's next for you all? Where are you going next?
What are you excited about? Listen, that's what I want to know. Like, what's next? But what are you excited about also? Like, this is what's exciting coming up?
I mean, honestly, like Europe is exciting. We had some fits and starts there, and to see now that we have a Barcelona office in this in the beautiful part of Barcelona with 25 people there. We speak French, Italian, Portuguese, Spanish, full stack support and products in that. And to see Beyond in Europe as Beyond, and not as like another company, is wild. I can't get enough of it. I keep going over there and just like soaking it in. But that to me is incredibly exciting. Continuing these conversations is really exciting. You know, just getting out and meeting people. I had to spend sort of 18 months behind closed doors because everyone was locked down. So getting out to shows. I mean, Teo, hopefully I'll see you in a show upcoming.
Definitely. Yeah. I will.
Are you going to be at DARM? Are you going to be at?
I will be at Verma International. So the team will be at DARM. I have some.
Are you going to the World Summit?
Yeah, in Vegas.
No, in Porto.
Oh, in Porto, yeah.
Porto,
At TBD, we might. Yeah, flights have been insane, and I'm trying to run a cash efficient company, so we'll see.
Right, that's the correct answer.
TBD. I put it on the calendar, but I'm waiting to see if flights come down. But are you going to be there?
I'm thinking I am. Shout out to Antonio. He puts on an amazing conference, and I think it's time for us to take the No BS podcast overseas. So I think I'm going.
I'll be here. Well, I'll be here on that one probably, but well,
no
for sure, Vegas.
That's payback for the summit last week. It's overseas, but no, Barcelona is one of my favorite cities. And so if I go, I'm definitely gonna make stops in Barcelona, like Madrid. I'm gonna make a tour of it. I miss traveling overseas. I have some good friends that I've met in this industry that I haven't seen in a long time. So I'm going to definitely make some road trips.
Please do. We have 5 terraces. It's next to a Gaudi building. It's like
you sold me in Barcelona. Now you just make.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Well, awesome. Julie, it's been great having you on. We really appreciate you joining the podcast. Thank you so much. One last shout out for those who are listening. Again, huge thank you to Vintory for being being a show sponsor for 20 episodes. We really, really appreciate you. If you're interested in learning more about what they have to offer, do not hesitate to go to vintory.com/no-BS. And Julie, thank you so much. We're excited to have you on and excited to see where Beyond's going and really excited to have you on the show. Thank you.
Thank you so much, John. Thank you so much, Mateo. Have a wonderful day. I really appreciated you inviting me. Had so much fun.
We'll have you back.
All right.